everyone. Welcome to the November session of Dr. Jaspersoft. I'm your host today. My name is Paul, and today I have one guest speaker for you today. We have Kyle. Thank you, Kyle, for joining us. We do appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
All right, today's Dr. Jaspersoft session, we're going back to the basics for building interactive visualizations in Jaspersoft Studio. We have a quick disclaimer slide. And the next Dr. Jaspersoft session, it's the second Thursday of our month. However, in December, we'll be taking a winter break. We'll be back in January. So our next session will be Ask the Experts. It'll be on January 8th, 2026. All right, Kyle, go ahead and take it away.
All right, today we're going to be looking at Jaspersoft Studio. The first thing we're going to cover is designing a great report right out of the gate using templates. Then we'll be doing some pro component stuff with the Elements palette. We'll be doing some component tweaking with the Properties tab. I will share with you a pro tip on how to customize a report depending on which organization you're using. Then we'll talk about getting reports where they need to be, which is the delivery, and getting the reports when they need to be, which is the scheduling.
All right, just a quick reminder, this is an interactive session, so please let us know if you have any questions, and we'll try to get into Kyle as quickly as possible. If not, we do have a Q&A session at the end where you feel free to ask questions. It's kind of open board then. If you want to save your question to then, yeah, please let us know, or feel free to ask it then. If not, we'll try to find a stopping point and ask Kyle as soon as possible. Thanks, everyone. Take over, Kyle.
All right, this is Jaspersoft Studio Professional, the latest version as of today, and this is where we're going to spend most of our time today. So let's take a quick look around the screen. Up here in the left-hand corner, we have the two different explorers. The repository explorer looks at your data adapters and your server connections. The project explorer is files that are on this machine locally for Studio to use. Right below it is the outline palette, which will give us an outline of all the components in our report once there's a report to be worked on. I'm moving the mouse around the center. That part of the screen is the design area where we will be focusing on designing the report. Down here at the bottom is the report state, which includes the errors tab. I'll show you a little bit. I'll intentionally create a couple errors so that comes up later. Down here on the right, we see the properties tab. We'll be working in here when we get to the customizing and playing with properties step. And up here is the palette, which is where the elements will be. So the first thing I need to do, however, is we're just going to set up a fake data source in order to be able to demonstrate what's going on today. So we're going to start here in the data adapters. We're going to create a new data adapter, and Jaspersoft provides for you a number of different ways to get to your data, including pulling from a CSV file or a JSON file, as well as an empty data source, which will give you empty rows that have null values. We're going to cheat today, and we're going to use a random records data source. What the random records data source will do is create random values for the different data types. Sometimes the random values are a little crazy, but I'll show you what they look like in just a little bit. We need to name it something. Let's just name it random data adapter. And we're going to say that we want 10 records out of this data adapter. We can set that to any number, but we're just going to pretend we want 10. So now that we have our data adapter, let's create a new report based on a template, which shows you the real powerful capabilities at getting a beautiful report right out of the box. So we're going to come up here to the File menu and choose New Jasper Report. And in this wizard, we can see that we have a number of templates. There's quite a few options here that are pre-designed as a way to give you a look at what a report could look like, or what you want to play with right out of the box. I'm just going to choose the first one because I kind of like this cherry one. And I'm going to put it right in the root directory of my Project Explorer. There's no reason to dig into the folders to bury it right now. It doesn't need to be named anything but cherry for now. And then we're going to tell it the data adapter we want to use for this report is our random data adapter we already created. What that's going to give us is a beautiful report right out of the box. There's a few things on here I'd like to point out. Of course, everything is pixel perfect. You can see the measurements to these are down to the pixel, and they will be exactly the same on every printout of it. There's a couple things that are static, like cherry title and cherry subtitle are just text that aren't going to change. The image isn't going to change for now. We'll change it later. You can see that there's some text fields in here that are going to dynamically put in data, like the current date or page blank of blank. So if I go to preview this, and then see what it looks like when it generates, we get a couple things here. The text is the same as I said. The date is actually populated in both places that the date was in here, as well as the page number. And what's a little hard to see, but there's actually 10 rows of data in here because we told our data adapter to create 10 rows. These are banded, so this is row 1, 2. There's 10 rows of data, but it's not actually displaying anything because we didn't tell it how to find the data out of the data source. So next thing we should do, I think, is go ahead and grab that data, but because it's a random data source, it doesn't actually know what the fields are that I'm going to want to be using. So I'm going to come in here to this wizard here called the Dataset and Query Editor. And this wizard lets me work with the data set. Now, typically, if it was actually in SQL, you would put in your SQL query here and use it to figure out which fields you're going to use. Today, we're adding a fake data, so I'm just going to fake the fields. And because it's almost Christmas time, I think it would be fun to create a report that is the naughty nice list for Santa Claus. So we need to know the names of the children that are on the list, and a name is a string. Another data point we might want is the number of gifts that this person is supposed to get. So we're going to label this field gifts. And that is not a string, that is an integer because we don't want to give anybody 2.3 gifts. And finally, let's add whether or not they're on the nice list. So we're going to just name this field nice and set the data type to be a Boolean. That will tell us if it's true, they're on the nice list. If it's false, they're on the naughty list. I think this data will give us a good start on our report. Now, the first thing I would like to do is I want to get rid of that solid bar we saw, those gray and white bands. And in this section, which is the detail section, so a detail section is printed on the screen once for every row of data. A column header goes once per column. Detail goes on once per row. So we should see this detail section on here 10 times. I'm going to put these values, all three of the fields we just created. I'm just going to drag them in here to the detail section, and you'll see that it created a heading along with the data. And if we preview this, we should see random names. The random generator picks name and then some numbers. I'm not sure why, but these are the names of the kids, the number of gifts each kid should get, and whether or not they're on the naughty nice list. Now, there's a big gap in between these rows because I just made the detail section really tall. I can take that and make it smaller. And what that'll do is make that less space between the rows. Now I want to take a quick look at adding a chart to this page. In the Components Pro section, we have some really neat charts. I would like to add a chart, and the way charts tend to work is because the detail row is once per row of data, we don't actually want to put a chart there. We want to put it somewhere like in a summary at the bottom. So down here is the summary band. What I want to do is add a chart to the summary band. So I drag it into summary here in the outline. And this is going to give us the ability to choose which chart we'd like to use. I think we'll just start with a simple bar chart. So let's preview it. Let's make that a little bigger. Now that chart doesn't actually look very good. Clearly it's just a real boring basic chart, and that's because we haven't hooked it to our data yet. So what we'll do is come over here to the data configuration, and we can see that the category expression change me is right here on the left. We actually don't want it to be change me. We want it to be the names of the kids. So we're going to take that out of there, find our field for names, and put that in. And when I hit finish here, we will update the preview. And somewhat interactively, we get to see that this report is now based on those silly random names, but it shows that each kid's getting one gift. And the reason for that is because the value expression says new integer of 1. So let's go in here and change the value expression. Instead of new integer of 1, let's put the number of gifts that the kids are supposed to receive. And the interactive part of this is a reload. And now we can see that each kid gets a different number of gifts. Moreover, down here it says measure label. We don't really want it to say measure label. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to get rid of measure label and let's change this to gifts.
Hey, Kyle, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Someone asked, could you add conditional formatting to the naughty nice field so that the naughty shows up in red and nice shows up in green? If so, what's the quickest way to achieve this?
That is a great question. We are actually going to do that
Hmm.
next. Let me finish playing with the chart and then we'll go straight into that conditional formatting.
Yeah,
Thank
as
you
soon
for
as I
that.
finish reading that,
Perfect.
yeah, I noticed
Yep.
that too.
So I told you I'd intentionally create a couple of exceptions. This is one. I put in the word gifts right here for the tooltip expression, and it complains that that's not a variable value. Now, what you may have noticed is before I put that in, this was surrounded by quotes. You can see that the tooltip says quote measure label quote because these are Java based objects. These are variables. This one is a Java based. It's got to be enclosed in strings so that Java recognizes it as a string. So now when I hit preview, it ought to not give me the error message and say gifts. So this chart's great. We've displayed uh, the number of gifts for each person. And if I hit the preview, what we'll see is that we have that same chart, which we'll format the colors on in just a minute, and our bar chart, which has the names associated with gifts. However, that Santa says that that chart really isn't particularly useful. Let's change that chart. What I want to see is just kind of a comparison of the relative number of gifts between the kids. So rather than a bar chart, maybe we change types. So let's go to select chart type, and we can do things like a tree map or a tile map that kind of shows. Oops, tile maps require more than one series, and we only have one series of data that kind of show things in a different manner. But probably the simplest way to compare sizes is just a simple pie chart. Now, our pie chart looks a little weird because it's by kid, but we can see that this kid is getting more than say this kid in terms of number of gifts. But Santa's actually starting to say, well, maybe not the number of gifts we actually need to compare. I just want to compare naughty and nice. How many kids were really naughty versus nice? So instead of a slice being based on a name, let's base this slice on how many kids were nice and how many kids were naughty. Now, the field itself is a Boolean, and I don't really want it to say true or false on the screen. So what I think we'll do here is put in a little expression that converts the nice value into the words naughty and nice. So if they're nice, using a ternary operator, we're going to say nice. And if they're naughty, we're going to say naughty. And this ternary operator takes the Boolean and converts it into a string is what this is going to do. So when I hit this and hit redo the preview, it will bring up the relative numbers of nice kids and naughty kids. Now we're getting a little better. However, when I hover over it, it still says gifts, the number of gifts. Gifts isn't actually a good value expression here because it's not based on number of gifts anymore. Now it's based on the number of kids. But what I really want to see is how many kids fall into each of those categories here when I hover over. What we're going to do here is pick up a parameter, a variable. In the variables, there's a variable named report count, and the report count is the number of records that match this number that fall into this group. So I can drag report count up. Oops, I didn't get rid of gifts. That made it a mess. So let's try it again. Drag the report count up here. And when we do that, it will now show the relative number of kids who are naughty and the kids who are nice. And you notice it put quotes, excuse me, it still has quotes around gifts, but it's not showing gifts anymore. So let's just do naughty versus nice as our tooltip. And what that gives us is a new, and you'll see the relative numbers are changing because it's a random data source. It changed randomly each time we ran it. But we see the relative numbers of naughty versus nice kids. When we put this into our report, we can preview the report and see that it updates from that bar chart to a pie chart. Just really quickly, there's a couple more things I'd like to do on here. The legend is kind of silly. It doesn't really tell us anything more than what the little callouts tell us. So let's get rid of the legend and let's fix the colors. At being a Christmas list, blue and black are not really the optimal colors. So let's bring our preview back up. And what we'll do here is we'll go into the chart formatting. We're going to start with legend. And we don't really want to show the legend because it doesn't make sense. So we're going to hide that. And then we're going to play with the colors a little bit. We want naughty to be in red. So let's grab the red color and move it up to the top, since naughty is the first one for some reason in the blue. And then we want the nice to show up in green. So let's grab the green color and move it up to the nice section. And what we get is a nice graph that has naughty in red and nice in green. And we like that a lot better. So we'll call that good for our graph. And if we preview it, we'll see it update and get rid of that legend that was somewhat useless. There's our nice relative numbers of naughty and nice, and you can kind of compare that there's a few more naughties and the falses up here than there are nices, which unfortunately, apparently this year, or this random data set, kids are getting naughtier. Now, also in this Pro palette, besides the HTML5 charts, we have a number of types of maps. We've got HTML5 maps, we've got Maps Pro, and we've got Tibco maps, and there's slight differences, but let's take a look at this one real quick. If we put an HTML5 map in and take a quick preview of it, HTML5 maps are simple, straightforward, mostly political maps. So we'll see that this is a map of the United States, or what I would like to show, because I used to live there, is Honduras. I want to put in Honduras, and then we'll have to update the preview. And this gives us a nice map of Honduras. We can also, the other types of maps, so those are straightforward, pretty much political maps. The Maps Pro components are based on a map provider like Google or MapQuest and allow you to do things like put routes and pins on the map. The Tibco maps are another step beyond that. So this is the full Tibco geoanalytics map, which allows for sophisticated multi-layer maps. You can do things like put paths around the borders or something, as well as multi-layers of paths and multiple layers of pins. And it also has things like terrain maps and traffic density maps. And there's the full-fledged geoanalytics engine, like I said. The other types of components in here, the ad hoc component lets you embed an ad hoc report within this report. The nice thing about that is that the ad hoc report is based on someone else's work. They can go update their ad hoc report, and it will automatically update in this report, interactively, dynamically, however you want to say that. The Charts Pro components, let's take a quick look at what we get when we bring that in. Charts Pro components are similar to the charts components, but this allows things like 3D columns. There's some really neat different chart types in here. And there's also Widgets Pro. If you put a widget in, we can see, let's make these just a little bigger so we can see them a little better. And these widgets are things like your thermometer. The LED things will light up different colors based on what percentage or what value range is showing. This gives you things like your angular gauge. The widgets are intended to show a single piece of data very quickly and in a very easy to digest manner. Now let's return to the question we had about changing the colors up in here. The question was conditional formatting. Let's look at simple formatting first. Let's say Santa just wants to see the gifts, the number of gifts column in different colors. Let's come down here to the properties tag and just change the foreground color. Again, this is the report is mostly black and red, so let's just change it to a red. And what we'll get then is in the preview, we'll see that the gifts text has now changed to red. We could also do things in here like play with the borders. Maybe the gifts area needs a border around it. And let's just go with like a dark green, because dark green's easier to see, I think, than light green most of the time. And Christmas colors are red and green. So let's set a border around each gift that is a green box. Nope, Kyle messed up. Let's take a look at why that happened. Solid line with a green border should be coming up. There we go. Now we've got our green boxes around each one. And then, the fields, these two fields are really wide. So one thing I want to do here is grab all of the fields in this table that we're kind of sort of dynamically creating. I'm going to right click on them and choose Arrange in Container. And under here is a spreadsheet layout. And what this does is it locks the data value to the heading. And so we can grab one of these data elements. We can make it skinnier because the number of GIFs doesn't need to be nearly that wide. And it will size the heading and the data value together. It kind of locks the size of these two in step. So I can grab this and change the size of both pieces. And what we'll see on the preview is now our table is going to get a lot narrower. Those boxes got a lot smaller. So now we're doing good. Like we said, the number of GIFs for each kid is in here, but really this nice information is kind of hard to digest. Looking at the true and false value, let's conditionally format this and answer the question all in one shot. So what we want to do is change the color of the name based on whether they're naughty or nice. To do that, we're going to first create a style. And we right click on styles and choose create style. I'm going to start not on the appearance. I'm going to actually start on the style tab and name this style naughty nice style and then style. In particular, because nice is a Boolean and true is nice, I'm going to set this style up carefully so that it shows naughty by default. Let's choose the same red we already used before by choosing last used colors. And we set the foreground to red for this style. And then what we'll do is come in here to the name element, and we will set the style to NN style, naughty nice style. And if we preview this, we'll see that the names all turn red because our style so far only has red, and we want to tie it to the value of the nice column. To do the conditional formatting, we go back into our style, the style itself, and then style. We choose create conditional style. In the conditional style, we now want the foreground color to be the green. Let's use the same green because I think that's a little easier to read than a light green. And then we're going to have to go to the style itself and write a conditional expression for when it's going to use the condition of the green style. In this case, it's simple. We went straight forward. Nice is a Boolean. So when it's nice, it's green. When it's not, it's red. So we can just leave that as nice, not have to do anything like not or opposite operators. So we've already set this style to be naughty nice style. And now naughty nice style has a conditional. So when we hit preview, we should see the kids' names change to match. If they are nice, they will be green. If they are naughty, they will be red. Now, of course, the nice column is now redundant, so let's just drop that column off of there. We don't need either one of these components anymore because we have that in the colored information. Now for the pro tip, this is probably going to stretch the Christmas analogy just a little bit, but what I want to do is, well, let's first remind ourselves this is the naughty nice list. We don't really need a subtitle. Now, if this was a corporation, if this was your business, and you had multiple organizations underneath your parent organization, we're going to just pretend for a minute that Santa has two different sub-organizations. On my server, I have the organization ABC. That's the parent company. Underneath ABC are two sub-organizations, DEF and GHI. I've already set up on my server under DEF a logo for the DEF company, and under GHI, a logo for the GHI company. You'll notice the paths are the same. So it's in DEF, ad hoc components, logo. The logo for GHI is in GHI, ad hoc components, logo. What we're going to do is we're going to change this image. So instead of a cherry, it's going to give Santa the logo of the company that's currently running the report. So we're going to take this image. We're going to come down here to the image expression. And you could also add an image by dragging one in, but since we already have one, we'll go ahead and modify it. Instead of being cherry.jpg, we don't really want that image. we want an image based on the logo that's in the folder. So we're going to use the folder icon. We're going to choose select a resource from the server because both of these logos are on my Jasper Reports server. We're going to put in the path, once this loads, to the first image, and then we'll have to modify it so it can read either one. Come on. Okay, so under organizations, under our parent organization, we'll go to the child organization, DEF, and grab the DEF logo for now. That's going to put the DEF logo up here, and you'll see if we preview it, the DEF logo replaces the cherry on our report. Now, this isn't dynamic yet if it doesn't go to the GHI logo. To do that, we're going to have to have a little bit of insider knowledge. This is why this is a pro tip. When you run a report on Jasper Reports server, there are a number of parameters that are given to you by default from the server that are not available here in Studio. So we're going to fake it by creating our own fake parameter that looks like one of the ones that will be on the server. So we'll create a parameter here, the parameter's name, and this is copied from the server's parameter name. Logged in user tenant ID. And the tenant ID is the name of the organization that the user is logged into. So if a user from DEF comes in, his logged in user tenant ID will be DEF. And if a user's logged into GHI, his logged in user tenant ID will be GHI. Incidentally, if his logged in user or if he's logged into ABC, his logged in user tenant ID will be ABC. We could actually use that one also. So now we have this parameter named logged in user tenant ID. And that parameter is now available to be used in the parameters tool. So let's go back to our image. Let's modify this expression for how to find the image and use that logged in tenant ID instead of DEF. So we'll go to the expression editor. What I'm going to do, again, remember this is Java, so to paste the parameter in, I have to quote string and add that parameter. In the parameters list at the bottom is logged in user tenant ID. Let's just drag that in here. And I want to replace DEF, so let's get rid of the DEF. Let's get rid of the DEF instead. Now, continuing to use our Java strings, we're going to have to do the plus and the quote, but DEF is in here again, so let's get rid of it the second time. And paste that same logged in user ID in one more time right here in the middle. What we get when we put this together is we should get the same path. If I'm logged into DEF, it should say organization /DEF /ad hoc /DEF. And what we're going to do again, because we're faking this, let's take a quick look again at this. Because we're faking it, we're going to ask it to prompt us. Only in Studio are we going to want it to prompt us and tell us what, or ask us what organization we're logged into, because we're not logged into an organization. So the default value, let's set the default as DEF. Now, if I hit preview, I should get an error. And the error is because DEF is not a variable. We saw that same kind of error before. So let's fix the compilation errors. To do that, the simplest way is to just click on this error and it takes you right to it. DEF is not a variable. We forgot to put in the Java string indicators. DEF, the default value, should be a text string. Now, when I preview it, we're going to see that it's asking us for a logged in user tenant ID, and the default is DEF. So if I run the report, I should get the report with the DEF logo at the top, which is exactly what we wanted. But if I want to try out the GHI logo, I'll come up here to this button, which shows parameters again. On the parameters, I change this to the GHI company. I rerun the report. And what I end up with is the same report with the GHI logo at the top. Now, we need to get this report out onto the server. We need a server that's accessible. So first, I'm going to just go look at my server real quick and show you that in the repository, for example, for the ABC ad hoc components, there are no reports here. And that's where I want to put it, is in the ABC ad hoc components folder. So we're going to take this and admit that I haven't actually saved this yet. So we can save it, and we can also hit this button here, which you can see the tooltip says publish the file to Jasper Reports server. Both do the same thing. If I save it, it saves the local copy and asks if I want to publish it to the server, which I do. So I'm going to say yes. Like I said, I'm going to put it in the ABC ad hoc folder. So here's ABC, here's my ad hoc folder. I don't want to name it Cherry 1. That's kind of silly because this is actually the naughty nice list. So I type in the name naughty nice list. Now I'm going to hit next. And this screen is a really helpful screen. It helps you to publish things like your parameters and your variables to the server. In this case, I don't really want to publish the DEF logo. I got it from the server. It's already there, so I don't need to overwrite it. I'm going to choose ignore. Moreover, the logged in user tenant ID already exists on the server. I was faking it here, so I'm also going to ignore publishing that one. And then this wizard lets you go on to choose data sources and hook it up to your data source on the server. We don't need to do that right now. So I hit finish, and then I get a success message. It says it was published to the server. Let's go check the server real quick. We'll have to refresh this page by clicking on something and clicking back. And we'll see that our naughty nice list now exists in my Jasper Reports server. One small caveat, because we were using a fake data, random data source, if I run the report here, we're going to see that it's empty because it doesn't actually have a data source on the server. It was just a fake data source on Studio. So in here, you'd have to go in and connect it to a real data source. Now, finally, we need to make sure that Santa gets this on Christmas Eve every year. To make sure that goes to him, I can right-click on this and choose Schedule, and we're going to look at the schedules associated with this report. And I'll possibly set one up. This takes us to the summary screen, which says there are no jobs scheduled for this report. Of course there aren't. We haven't set one up. So we're going to come up here and choose Create Schedule. We want this schedule to start immediately for this Christmas. We could say on a date in the future, but we really want it soon. Because I chose Honduras before, let's put this on Honduras time, which is actually the same as Eastern time in the United States. And then we're going to set up a recurrence because Santa needs this list every year. There are simple recurrences. You can run a report every day, every week, but we don't actually want to run it on a simple recurrence. We want it to run on a specific day. So we're going to choose the calendar. We don't want every month. We want the month of December. We don't want every day. We don't even want every weekday. We actually want the day, December 24th. We can set it up for different times. Let's give the elves most of the day to get the report compiled and deliver this in the evening. So something like these times are in 24-hour times. So 8 o'clock in the evening or 20 hours. The end date we can schedule, but we want Santa to get this every year. So we're not going to set an end date. And we can optionally exclude holidays, but we definitely don't want to exclude Christmas Eve, the holidays. So let's skip that one too for now. Now that we've set up when the report goes, we need to set up how the report gets there. So we're going to look at the output options here. The file is going to be named Naughty Nice List. That makes sense. The description is Naughty Nice List. Again, the time zone, we want it to be delivered in Honduras time, or at least I do. The output locale, because Honduras is Spanish speaking rather than English, we're going to put this in Espanol. The format, we can export in any number of the formats, any format that Jasper Reports server can handle. We can do a document or a web page, CSV, but PDF kind of actually makes sense for this. It's a nice looking report that Santa's going to print out and tape to the dash of his sleigh on Christmas Eve. We don't really want to overwrite last year's file, so we're going to do sequential naming, but since the report only gets run once a year, we'll take off all this and just use year as the timestamp. So what the file will actually be named naughty underscore nice underscore list underscore 2025 this year. We have a number of options for where to put the file. It doesn't make sense to put it on an FTP server to me because Santa needs to just print it out, so he doesn't need it sent somewhere special. But these options do exist. In particular, let's put it just in the temp folder. So this is going to put it in the ABC company's temp folder. Now we've got what we're delivering and we've got when, but we still need who and how to get it there. So we're going to click on the notifications tab up here. We want to send the report itself to Santa, of course. Santa at northpole.com. We also kind of want the head elf to get it. And if you've seen the TV show Prep and Landing, we know that the head of the Naughty Nice list is named Wayne. So Wayne at Prep and Landing is going to get a copy of the Naughty Nice list. The subject, of course, is Naughty Nice list. The message is check it twice. We want to remind them that it's time to check the report. Now we can send it as a link, but then they have to log into Jasper Report's server to get access to it. And Santa's busy on Christmas Eve. Let's send him the actual report. We can zip it up, but he's busy. We don't really. This isn't a huge report anyway. Let's just send him the report directly as an attachment to his email. Finally, Kyle, as the person who set up this report, needs to know for sure that that report got there, that Santa actually got a copy of it. So we're going to send a job status notification. I don't need to see the list. I just need to know for sure that he got it. So Kyle at jaspersoft.com is going to get a copy of the job status. And the status is going to say, Naughty Nice list delivered. If it's successful, I want a success notification that says, yay, they got it. If it fails, and this to me is the more important one right now, I need to know that it failed so that I can come in into the server and find out why. So I'm going to say, oops, I want a copy of the job information, which tells me which job was running, which report we were trying to run, and helps me figure out how to find the error message. And I want to copy the stack trace too, so I can see exactly what went wrong with the report. So all of this now is the things we need to set up for Santa's Naughty Nice list to be delivered every year. I click on save. It wants me to name the job. So this is the Naughty Nice list job. And when I save that, it is now added to this list of scheduled jobs. There's the Naughty Nice list job running by super user that I logged in as. And it will next run on December 24th, 2025 at 7 o'clock my time, because I'm in Central Time right now, which is the 8 o'clock at night that I requested for the delivery time. And we'll see, we would see if we waited a little over a month for this to run, that I would get an email saying either yay or oops, and Santa and Wayne would both get an email with the Naughty Nice list if it works. All right, that is all I had prepared. Let's take a few questions if there are any more.
We do have one. We have a customer asking, is it possible to export a report from the Jaspersoft server with a dynamic name?
Yes, it is. Let me go back to the report itself. View repository on the Naughty Nice list. If you sorry, I didn't want to run it. I didn't want to edit it. I wanted to run it. If you want to run the report directly here on the server, what we'll get is you have the option to, well, you have the option here to export it. This one won't export because the list itself is empty, but you can choose here the different report types, your PDF, your CSV, and when you choose save, you'll get a normal browser download that lets you change the name. That, of course, lets you use any name you want. If you were talking about the scheduled job, when we're editing the name, output options, here in the file name, you can use the parameters and the variables that we saw. This isn't a great example, but we saw when we were creating this, for example, this image, that we could use the parameter, that's the $P format is. So this parameter named logged in user tenant ID in the server, we can put that parameter in here, and it will dynamically use the name of dynamically use that parameter, which in this case is the name of the logged in tenant. So if I was logged into organization ABC and ran this scheduled report, we would get naughty underscore nice underscore list underscore ABC underscore the year. It's a great question.
Awesome.
Any other
Yes.
questions?
We do have one coming in real quick. How to send dynamic parameter from a job? For example, something like dates.
I'm not sure quite what that means. How to send it from a job? The the parameters, these are the parameters that are built into Studio. You can also add your own, and then there's a handful of parameters that are built into the Jasper Report server. Anywhere you want to use those, you use this notation. And this expression builder also helps figure that out. So
It looks like
any
he
of the
was
parameters that are built in, like um, if you wanted to use the sort fields for some reason on the screen, you just drag that in here and it tells you. I dragged it to a really bad place. Sorry. Let's put it down
he's
here
asking
where
about
it's
specifically
clear.
in the scheduler.
Okay, so in the scheduler, um, I'm not sure. The only place really where you can um, do things dynamically is in the name of the file. If you want to do things on a schedule based on dates, this is the only recurrence we have. We don't have a. You can't put parameters into here. I don't think.
Right. But if
Is
you
that the
mean like,
question? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
yeah, I don't fully understand here if you want to clarify it for us. But yeah, if you mean in the report, there is a date parameter there, so you can use that and it'll give you the current date. But I don't think you can
Yes.
change that on the scheduler itself.
So the date, for example, this date is dynamic. It is using a text field object. You can see that it's a text field here in the properties. So when I click on this, the property is new java.util.date, which is a Java term. So the value of the field, the expression that builds the value, is a new java.util.date. And that Java object will populate this field. And of course, we can see when we preview it that it puts in today's date. You can also do things like um, anything that you can do in Java. So you can do minus, uh, you know, I don't remember the exact syntax off the top of my head, but you can do things like 3 days ago, which I think is actually bad syntax. But you can do anything that works in Java in this field, and it will calculate the date based on what you put in here. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I think also he also wanted to know if they want to run a report, for example, for the last month and get the email. So I guess all the information from the last month.
Okay. Where you would probably do that is in your data set and query. So if this was based on a real data set rather than my random data adapter, you would probably put that in your query to grab the data, or you can use a filter expression to filter your data based on within the last month. So you would either do something like select users from user table where, login date greater than today minus 1 month, or I don't, your database syntax will matter here, but something like that within 3 months. Alternatively, you could not put it in a where clause, do select users from user table, and then on the filter expression, add an expression like, well, I don't have a date field, but your date field would be something like login date is greater than new java.util.date minus 3 months. You would end up doing something like that as your filter expression. And what that will do is filter the data. Now, I didn't hit OK because I don't want it to throw errors, but that would put a filter expression on, which would do the same thing as the where clause. It would add to the actual SQL query run against the database a where clause based on your filter expression.
Right. Which you would all do on the report side. If you want it specifically from
Mhm.
the scheduler side, you can make it input control. That's
Yes,
something a little bit more advanced, I would say. But yeah, if you do an input control on the scheduler side, it lets you choose the values that you put or that you want in the input control. For example, you can do a date picker and go back 1 month worth of data. Exactly like that.
correct. Yeah, so what we did here with our fake parameter, you can put a real parameter. The parameter that matters to you is the start date of the report. Um, and then the parameter, when we publish this to the server, let's just see if the wizard will let me get there again. On this page, your new parameter, which will be start date or whatever, you're going to choose overwrite and actually write that parameter to the server. And what'll happen is on the server, uh, this is the scheduler again. Of course, we're still in the scheduler. One of the things you can do in here is there's a parameters tab I didn't show you because I didn't put any input parameters into this report. But in the parameters tab, you'll tell it how to find the value for the start date. Um, in this case, today minus 3 months or whatever. As so, when you run the job, uh, if you run the report directly like this, it's going to pop. There's going to be a pop up in the middle of the screen that asks you for the start date. When you run it as a scheduled job, you tell it in that parameters tab how to figure out what the start date would be.
Exactly. And of course, if this is something y'all want to see, please let us know. Reach out to us and say, hey, I want to see how to build a report with the input control for a date or anything. Just please let us know. It gives us some feedback and let us kind of cater to whatever you want to see because that's what we're here for. I currently don't see any other questions right now, so I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Great.
As always, you can find our resources, all these slides and the video we posted shortly on YouTube. The slides will be posted actually on the Dr. Jaspersoft webpage. You could download those and follow along and go, refer back to them if you want. We do have a few upcoming events. November 19th and December 17th will be a live Jaspersoft demo. It's the third Wednesday of every month. We also are looking forward. Jaspersoft 10 is right on the horizon. We don't have an exact date yet, but it is coming soon. So they'll have a webinar on that. The next generation of embedded analytics and reporting. That'll be Thursday, December 11th. And then, of course, our Ask the Experts is coming. Bring your questions, bring any concerns you may have. That's going to be Thursday, January 8th. That's going to be our first Dr. Jaspersoft session for the year. Again, next month we're taking a winter break, so we kind of have that month off, and then we're jumping right back into jumpstarting reporting. And if you have any questions, you can submit them beforehand or let us know. And during the live session, we'll ask as many, answer as many questions as we can during that session. We'll have a panel of experts there, and you bring your questions and some questions submitted, and we'll answer those live. And so, as always, thank you for joining our session. We do appreciate it. Feel free to engage with us. Please log a case for your customer. Engage on our community forums. We are active. I myself am active. I answer questions. Guide people as much as I can and everything like that. We have live support members that are always active in of our whole team on the active on the community. Feel free to email me. Please engage with us. Like I said, you can email me at that email anything you want, any questions, concerns, anything you need. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. We'll talk to you soon.